Welcome to All Autism Talk, connecting the autism community one podcast at a time. Our podcast offers friendly conversations with inspiring individuals in the autism community. All Autism Talk is brought to you by Learn Behavioral and the Learn Provider Network. Now here's your host.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Autism Talk. Our podcast is brought to you by Learn Behavioral, a leading ABA provider serving families across the country. I'm your host, Katherine Johnson. Parents of children and teens with autism, like parents of neurotypical kids, wonder what their child's life will look like as they grow into adulthood. We all know there really aren't enough options yet for young adults with autism. But today, we want to shine a light on one organization that's using creativity and community to create job opportunities and enriching life experiences for young adults on the spectrum. My guest is Heather Tarczan, the Executive Director of Urban Autism Solutions. Urban Autism Solutions is a nonprofit program in West Chicago that has several residences, a transition academy, and runs a working produce farm right in the center of the city. I find their model absolutely brilliant, and I hope you're inspired by listening to Heather describe the services they offer. Hello, Heather Tarczan.
Hi, Katherine. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
I am so excited about hearing about this program. Urban Autism Solutions, I know, is based in West Chicago, and it's a really unique program for young autistic adults that blends residential, vocational, and social programs. And I can't wait to hear all of the details about this amazing program. But if you don't mind, could we just start with how the foundation got its start?
Absolutely. So almost 10 years ago, our founders, Julie and Michael Tracy, were looking for solutions for their own son, John, who is a young man that has autism. And I should preface this by saying that John has also given us permission to speak about him and about his story.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So John was going through some mental health challenges coupled with his autism, and Julie and Mike knew that him coming home and living with them and being together again just wasn't going to be an option. It wasn't going to work. And they had a lot of foresight and vision. And what they decided to do was go around the country and look at different places, best practices, ideas, and try to see, was there a place out there that John could potentially become a part of? And through their research and through their different tours and visits, they found that there wasn't any one place that met what it was that they were looking for. And they narrowed down 3 components, and that was residential, social, and vocational programming. And from that, at the time, the Julie and Michael Tracy Family Foundation was born. They knew that this was something that they wanted to pay forward to the community as well. It wasn't just going to be for John, it was going to be for others also. And nearly 10 years ago, the Julie and Michael Tracy Family Foundation, which 6 years ago we changed to Urban Autism Solutions, was born. And from that, again, through some really hard work, a lot of vision, and also through some very strategic planning on Julie's part, she was able to identify a very relevant neighborhood here in Chicago in what's called the Little Italy neighborhood. And it's located next to the University of Illinois, Chicago. It's right down the street from Rush University Medical Center. And aside from having our hospital relationships that we use for our residential clients, it's also a model that helps us bring in students who are able to serve as part-time staff members. So we're located in this very relevant neighborhood that also has a lot of young adults and also a lot of very charismatic neighbors that have lived here for decades. And we're located very close to public transportation, which of course is huge in Chicago, but we're also located right off of the highway. So within 2 or 3 blocks of where we're located, you're either at the highway or you're on a bus. We're less than 2 miles from central downtown. And that's what really started our impetus for building our community. We were able to find a house that is converted into an autism-friendly space. We have 4 private clients that live there. Everybody has their own bedrooms. There's 2 people that share a bathroom. The first floor is really used as community space. There's a tiny basement office, and the rest of it is bedrooms. So from building that foundation, we have since over the years continued to build out the organization and the programs.
As you were saying, those 3 pieces that they were looking for: residential, vocational, and social. And I know that your age group is sort of like late teens or, 20s and 30s, young adults. It strikes me that all of those things individually are often hard to find in a community. And it seems almost too good to be true that you would, that there are some families that have all 3 of those elements wrapped up in one program. And I'm wondering, with those 3 elements, are they, do they have the same staff? Do staff go between them? Are they sort of siloed? How do they work together?
It's a great question. The staff is different staff. Every day, one of the big things that we focus on is our person-centered programming and work that we do with each of our clients. We're a very, very small residential community. We have 7 young adults that live in this community, 1 female, the rest are male. And each client has their own schedule for the day, and your schedule might look different than mine. Mine will look different than my neighbors, but everybody has different things that they're doing and goals that they're working towards accomplishing, whether it's employment, volunteering, work in the community, doctor's appointments, behavioral therapy, all of those different parts and pieces, recreation, fun times. We try to do a lot of fun things that any other 20-some-year-old living in the city of Chicago would want to take advantage of and be a part of, particularly in the summertime. But the staff is, they're full-time staff folks that might rotate with the clients, or might always be a person that is a staff person that's always assigned to meal planning and preparation. But the clients will rotate on who's helping our residential coordinator actually put together a meal or help chop up the vegetables for the beef stew or whatever it is they're making that night. Every evening, 5 days a week, there's a community dinner that our residents help our residential coordinator prepare. During the day, lunch and breakfast are pretty much on your own. But we come together a lot as a community to just talk about things, try to identify potential hiccups or concerns somebody might have with their schedule or a doctor appointment or whatnot. And these folks work very, very closely with our staff that is trained DSPs. And it's been an incredible asset of our program to have such qualified, really dedicated staff people who very frankly don't make a ton of money doing this kind of work, but are really the best of the best.
I love that you just started talking about like the person-centered planning that you just brought up. And I'm wondering how you incorporate choice and preference and self-advocacy and all of those things into your various programs.
Absolutely. The clients themselves, everybody has goals. So maybe there's a fitness goal, maybe there's a learn how to cook goal, maybe there's a goal for employment. And
do they help you? Are they included in their own goal setting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As are the parents. So we're fortunate right now that parents are involved with their young adult, and they come together at least once a year to go over the plan and what does the next plan for the next year look like? What goals were we able to obtain in that current year? But the client is very, very much at the table with that process. Perhaps we would suggest finding a job at company X, but the candidate really, really wants company Y. Well, we're going to do everything we can to get them in company Y, and really try to make sure that goal is obtained. And largely, we're very successful in that. But it has to be something that we know we can take on and help that client to master. So if somebody wants to, fly an airplane, we can help make sure that they're getting to the lessons and doing all of those sorts of things. But it's all about choice and advocating for themselves. And there's plenty of times where our clients, learn to speak up, like they don't want to do something in particular, or they'll do something, but they really want to do something else. And we encourage like those kind of discussions and dialogue so that they are advocating for themselves and what their interests might be.
I love that. And I love too that you have this Growing Solutions Farm. I would like to hear more about that.
So Growing Solutions Farm is one of my favorite programs. Julie Tracy, who founded the organization, is a speech and language pathologist, but she also had some agriculture experience in the suburbs of Chicago, and started the first 4-H club in a neighborhood that she was from called Glenview. And it was through that Julie really realized the work hardening. You're coming to a farm and it's really a level playing field. We're in the middle of the city of Chicago. There's not a lot of farms. There's not a lot of urban farms. And 10 years ago, it was very, very rare. And what her intention was, and what we've been able to continue to manage, is bringing people to kind of this even playing field. They're working outside in the sunshine. It's hot. Maybe it's a little colder. Maybe it's rainy. It's a lot of work hardening, but it's also building up on different skills that the client is learning. So they start off in groups and kind of graduate to different levels of independence. And what's so unique about this program as well is that the West Side high schools that we are predominantly working with, which are extremely low income and very violent ridden neighborhoods of Chicago, we're bringing these young adults in that are in transition programs from their high schools, and they're working alongside their teachers and their paraprofessionals and their teaching aides. And they're seeing their teachers sweat and, have to lift heavy things and move wheelbarrows and learn how to balance and kind of coordinate. So it again, it kind of creates like this level playing field. What's also so special about the farm is that it's in an enclosed area in the Illinois Medical District. And it is a perfect place for people who typically are not able to get outside and enjoy the outdoor environment safely. And these kids can come here and explore the entire 1.2 acre farm. There's tons of work to do at all times, and they're learning light construction, landscaping, when to harvest, customer service, because we do have an on-site farm stand and a CSA program. So the students have to learn how to interact with the public, and we'll work with some students who feel confident in speaking to the public or with their communication skills to give tours and provide tours for our community. But it's a wonderful program that I cannot speak enough of. I mean, you're getting your hands dirty, you're off electronic devices. We have a shaded tent area where the kids will have some instruction or some food tasting experiences. Fresh produce is a rarity in some of the neighborhoods. And it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to try new things, even if they don't really like them. But it's fun to show them that instead of the bag of chips, let's learn how to make some really easy salsa. Let's squish those tomatoes and do things that are very tactile. Our farm is very autism friendly with the spaces and even the noise. We have battery operated lawn mowers, so it's much quieter than a typical lawnmower. We added this year, thanks to the Windy City Lions Club, we were able to actually add a sensory garden where we're encouraging people to literally stop and smell the flowers, to touch them, to kind of feel them. So it's a really cool spot.
So I was going to ask you how big it is. So 1.2 acres in the middle of the city of Chicago?
Yes, in the middle of the city of Chicago. It's absolutely incredible.
Was it a farm before you all took it over, or did you, what was the space there before?
The Illinois Medical District, Catherine, is a body of land that has about 500 acres that they control. And on that body of land, there's 4 different hospitals. There's a number of different healthcare facilities. There's some nonprofit organizations. And the parcel of land that we were on was just vacant land. It was unusable land per developers because it's a little rocky. There's some water flow grading issues that would all have to be mitigated in order to really develop the parcel. So it's probably not worth it at the end of the day to invest all of that money literally in the ground. So I actually met Julie Tracy about 8 years ago when she was first starting the farm. I had worked at the medical district, and my supervisor, Warren Ribley, had a meeting with Julie and Mike Tracy. They said they wanted to start this farm. Did we have any land that they could use and try this? And that's when we first became acquainted. From that, Warren was able to identify this parcel of land that was partially enclosed on a street that didn't have a ton of traffic, and said, you can use this. We can't guarantee that nobody's going to steal your tomatoes, but you can use it. So fast forward, 8 or 9 years, and the parcel of land grew from earth boxes that you buy at a home improvement store, and we had about 50 of those, maybe 80 of those, to now a full-fledged working produce farm that has a full-time farmer on our payroll. And we produce thousands of pounds of food every year. We donate 20% of it to back to the West Side communities where our students are from. It's donated to food pantries. And then all of our students, because about 95% of them come from low-income households, they work on the farm and they're able to take home a bag or 2 or however many they want of fresh produce every week. So it's kind of giving right back to the community that we're drawing our students from, giving them great exposure on learning some transferable job skills, and being able to also show how important it is to give back to others. And we're trying to instill that in our students as well.
It just is astounding to me to think of the creativity that it takes for someone to look at, a parcel of land in the middle of a medical center and say, hey, I know what goes here, a farm. Right. I love it so much.
Right. I know, me too. It just is one of those things that was just serendipitous. There was no rhyme or reason for it. There was no farm there or nearby, or, it was just kind of this nebulous idea. And, we had wonderful partners that helped us get off the ground. Easter Seals was part of our program early on, as were one of our high schools from the West Side, and then our own residents participated in it. And many of them participated in it for 4, 5, 6 years before they kind of, felt like they outgrew it and demonstrated their self-advocacy by saying, I'm kind of done sweating in the sunshine and picking, kale leaves. But we
It's
found
so good for them to be outside and learning work skills. So you've got folks who are learning, those sort of like manual work skills and gardening skills and, soil cultivation. And then you've got the farm store. Any plans in the works for animals, chickens, or
That's funny. We get asked that a lot. Yeah, it would be so fun to be able to have those kind of animals. We don't have any plans. The medical district does have an ordinance against livestock or animals.
Of course,
Yeah, and also just to practice our good agricultural practices. We don't allow dogs on the farm and things like that. We try to keep it as clean as possible. It's all natural, organic vegetables that are grown. But it would be a lot of fun to have some goats and chickens.
And so I gather that from the way you've been talking about this, it's not just these 7 young adults who are living in the residences who are working on the farm. You're bringing in people from the Chicago Public Schools. Is that right?
That's right. We work with a number of West Side Chicago Public High School students who are in transition programs. And in the state of Illinois, they can stay in high school until their 22nd birthday. So the year that their school year ends and they turn 22, they could stay in high school. And we are specifically working with this demographic because there's schools and students that are very disadvantaged compared to other neighborhoods that are just a couple miles away from them, that have speech and language therapists, that have social workers. And when we first started the farm and when I first joined the organization, our intent was to try to capture as many students as we could before they graduated from high school and place them into employment. We had a very naive view of how easy that would be and how it would just happen. And we found that it was anything but. Our students, while they might have developed some work skills and demonstrated some, great transferable skills by showing up to work on time and showing up to work in uniform, where we were still having some missing pieces. And what we really wanted to bridge was the clinical services that the students are not getting in school, the speech and language, the social work by providing some social emotional learning, just practicing going into the community and learning how to behave, or how does one behave during a break at work. Years ago, we had a student who was working at a big box store. The student was told you can go on break between 10 and 2. Well, the student left for 4 hours, not understanding that it didn't mean you can take your 15-minute break between 10 and 2. He just thought he was supposed to leave during that time. So really trying to drill down and really trying to organize in a very methodical way what all happens and the timing of it. And in the fall of 2019, we decided to do what no other organization around here has done. And we kind of put a flag in the ground, took a chance, and went into a building where I'm coming to you from today that used to be a Montessori school. We took over 2 quote unquote classroom spaces that we decided we were going to use, and we were going to work with young adults on providing those clinical services. At the time, we had 2 high schools that were with us. We had about 25 Westside students. Within 4 months, we expanded to 5 high schools and 75 students, and ended up taking over 7,000 square feet of space in this building, and found that there was such a need for these services and for helping these young adults kind of connect the dots to really put them in a position where they could transfer from the last day of high school into their adult lives. And from that, particularly in the last year, despite the pandemic, we've been successful in placing these young adults into jobs, as well as being able to really connect with them, drill down. identify other needs or resources that they might need that, again, the schools can't provide, that maybe the families can't provide, but we can connect them to and help them in a very holistic approach.
Now, does the Chicago Public Schools fund this program or help fund this program?
They do not. All of our programming from the farm to what we call the UAS West Side Transition Academy is all funded through grant funding and private donations. So we try to do as much fundraising as we can and have been very fortunate to have some very generous partners.
So what's next for Urban Autism Solutions? You seem to have, you seem to be doing a whole lot. Are there, what are your future plans?
Future-wise, we would love to see our academy program, which is the farm is under that umbrella of the academy. We would love to see that program double. And we did find during the pandemic that we could successfully interact with some students that were a much further distance and for purposes of the pandemic because of the shutdowns. We can interact with students on Zoom and still give them meaningful experiences. So if they're in a location that's much further away that doesn't make sense for them to have to travel to, because all of our students join us via public transportation. There are no school buses that bring them here. So it can be a journey. We want to be able to continue to try to reach more students. And we can do that with additional funding through hiring additional staff and different clinical folks that can join this team. But of course, our preference is to do it in person. I think that this is a program that is very easy to replicate and to put into other major cities that are near universities and public transportation. That's really been the key to our success. And it would be amazing to have this in cities like, Atlanta or Dallas-Fort Worth or Cleveland, where there are some robust hospital, healthcare, university systems connected to public transportation.
We need you in Boston.
We would love to be in Boston. I love Boston.
This is such an incredible program. And I know that our listeners are going to be so excited to hear about it. And also, they're probably going to wonder what they can do to help. What can the general public do to help Urban Autism Solutions?
There's two ways that the general public could really help us. And one of them, no matter where that person might live across the country or around the world, is helping to connect us to others, whether it's businesses that are looking for entry-level candidates, or if it's through word of mouth, like, hey, I heard about this organization, and connecting us to of course, potential funders, but also potential clients. Also, if there's anybody that, wants to learn about replicating this program, I know there's opportunities to do that as well. And then, of course, it's always fundraising. So as nonprofits work, we're always looking to fundraise and to continue to grow and service additional young people.
Well, I know that this is a hot topic across the country, how to best service all of these folks with autism who are, reaching adulthood, and how to best provide them with all the supports that they deserve for a meaningful life. So I hope your phone is ringing off the hook with people who would like to replicate this program in other cities.
Absolutely. Oh, I do too. Thanks, Catherine.
Well, it was lovely to chat with you, Heather Tarczan. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming out of my conversation with Heather, I'm so impressed by the vision that brought this incredible program into being. They've created a place where young autistic adults can live, work, and socialize with the individualized supports they need to not just survive, but to thrive. They've been working on and refining this model for a decade, and I truly hope some of our listeners will take Heather up on her generous offer to assist them in replication sites in other cities. Also, if you're an employer in Chicago that wants to work with Urban Autism Solutions, Heather's contact information is in our show notes. You can listen to our other episodes on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. We always appreciate your reviews and ratings if you're so inclined. And if you have show ideas or a question for us, email us at allautismtalk@learnbehavioral.com or find us on Instagram or Facebook at Autism Therapies. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of All Autism Talk. This podcast is brought to you by Learn Behavioral, the leading network of providers serving children with autism and other special needs. Visit us at learnbehavioral.com. Listen to previous episodes at allautismtalk.com on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All Autism Talk, connecting the autism community one podcast at a time.